All right, so thank you, Jessica, for having the opportunity to share some thoughts regarding the safe and reliable marine shipping in the Arctic from an industry's perspective. Well, I'll keep things as concise as possible, given also the time frame. We're running a little bit behind schedule, so I'll keep things as brief. Next slide, please. So what I'll do in the next few minutes is I'll provide an overview of the marine transportation activities in the Arctic, the role of the marine transportation industry, some of the trends that we're noting, and some of our priorities for future investments that we have in mind. Keep in mind, this is a general overview, very quick oversight, but we'll address some of the issues here. Next, please. So very, very broadly, ships are used for a variety of purposes in the Arctic, as many of you around the table know, from the commercial shipping, which we'll address more in detail here today, but also in terms of tourism, fishing, recreational purposes, defense, etc. Commercial shipping per se can be categorized into different types, and that's what we'll break down in the next few minutes. We can talk about the resupply traffic, resource-based traffic, and transit traffic. And we'll see how these are evolving in time and how it'll impact the industry's needs. Next, please. So first off, in terms of the resupply traffic, we can define it by the transportation of goods and supplies by water to the Arctic communities. And it's required because these communities, as you guys know, are remote and are not accessible by the most part by rail or by road. Yes, air transport is a viable means of transportation, but it's not economically feasible for all types of cargoes, notably for heavy, high volume cargoes or cargoes in high quantities. So the marine transport will be very much involved in the transportation of vehicles, machinery, modular homes, building materials, containers, basically a lot of different things that are required within the communities. And the marine traffic shipping industry is very, very dependent on ice and weather conditions in the Arctic. In a typical season, a vessel will do 3 to 4 voyages, but this will be limited by the safe shipping navigating seas. Next. The resupply traffic also includes not just the general cargo goods that we described, it also includes liquid bulk cargoes such as heating oil and gasoline. These are vital for the operation of vehicles, generators, for heating homes and buildings. Next. The second type of traffic is what we can describe as the resource-based traffic. And it requires essentially the transportation of mineral resources that have been extracted from the Arctic from mining operations. We're talking about iron ore, nickel, lead, zinc, all of which have been shipped out of the Canadian Arctic to other Canadian ports or also international markets. Such mining operations and exploration activities also require a lot of supplies, machineries, all types of equipment, and that needs to be transported to site. So such cargoes are, typically loaded and within Canadian ports, quite often in the St. Lawrence River area, but it can also come from the West Coast or even international means. And these are transported to the mine sites. Again, under normal circumstances, vessels will do 3 to 4 voyages during the Arctic season. Transportation of mineral resources, whether it be the mined material, but also the resupply for the mines, it constitutes an important portion of the traffic, vessel traffic in Arctic waters. The next slide shows some of the illustrates some of the types of cargoes that are transported to such mine sites. On the left-hand side, you can see a consolidation center up north, where a lot of containers and general cargo has been temporarily stored, which will then be brought to the mine site. And on the right-hand side, you can see some of the type of dimensional equipment that's required. The third type of traffic that we'll note is the transit traffic. Transit traffic can be defined as ships transiting through the Arctic waters. They don't necessarily load or discharge cargo in the Arctic. And if given the evolution of the environment over the last few years, the Northwest Passage has been identified by many shippers as a faster and more effective route for navigating instead of through the Panama Canal, saving significant amount of days. Some of the ship owners that are looking at this are transporting all types of cargoes, whether it be ores, grain, petroleum products, containerized goods. And this type of trade is typically more susceptible to be carried out by foreign flag ships, so not necessarily Canadian owner vessels. So the role of the marine transportation industry in the Arctic. Well, first and foremost, commercial shipping provides a vital link to the Arctic. It allows for the transportation of goods needed for the well-being and development of the communities, and also for the exploration and the operation of the mines. The industry has evolved to adapt its vessels and the ships to be able to operate in the difficult Arctic conditions. Modern ships used for resupply traffic and resource-based traffic are really designed for the transportation of cargoes in icy conditions. In addition, many of the vessels have adapted their equipment and operating procedures to conduct handling operations without the need of port infrastructure, which we've alluded to in the previous presentations. The lack of the typical port infrastructure, which deep water port with quay, essentially renders that we need to have specialized handling equipment. And these type of practices pretty much are exclusively seen in Canada and very rarely around the world. On the left-hand side, you kind of see a picture where a vessel is being discharged with general cargo, and tug and barges are required to approach the cargo alongside to the high water mark. So Canadian companies have been quite resilient and innovative and have developed and optimized operating methods to be as effective as possible. But it remains that such operating procedures are not as efficient and as safe as using a common port infrastructure. And this goes for also the petroleum-based business. The next slide will then cover some of the trends that are affecting the industry. And so first, the decrease in multi-year ice due to climate change definitely increases the viability and feasibility for transit traffic. Transit traffic, again, cargo transiting through the Arctic, not necessarily for loading or discharging operations. In addition, Tim Brown earlier mentioned that Canada's newest, youngest, and fastest growing areas is the Arctic, and the demographics are changing. Also comes with an increase in economic prosperity. That'll lead to more goods and materials to be transported to communities. In addition, more and more infrastructure improvement and development projects are underway, whether it be regarding power generation, construction of education and training facilities, sports complexes, community complexes, healthcare facilities, housing. This will all contribute to an increase in resupply traffic. Also, more exploration efforts are still on the way, and we know that Canada is a resource-rich area. So it's anticipated that mineral resource extraction activities will continue. This will have a direct impact on the resource-based traffic and will contribute to more resupply required for these operations. As a result, it's anticipated that resupply, resource-based, and transit traffic will increase in the subsequent years. And this poses significant challenges because the Arctic remains a very harsh and difficult environment for shipping. We've highlighted some priorities for future investment here in order to have safe and reliable shipping, but by no means is it limited. We've highlighted 3 of them, which we'll address a little bit more in detail. First is the ice navigation support. The Canadian Coast Guard's ice-breaking service is critical for the safe operation of marine traffic in the Arctic. Just for example, as of today, as we're speaking, there's an excess of 20 commercial ships in the Ungava Bay, Hudson Strait, and Hudson Bay area with limited ice-breaking support services as it is. So any future investments to further develop the capabilities for that and improve the safety and timeliness of movements of traffic is critical. Also, what goes hand in hand is the Canadian Coast Guards and other federal entities support with ice conditions, ice weather forecasts, and related weather data, again, critical for safe navigation. The second aspect would be the chartering of the Canadian Arctic waters. For many, this is quite of a surprise, but a lot of the area in the Arctic is not well mapped out. Any subsurface features, marine tables, that can all be improved. Very, very minimal territory is actually covered. And really, it renders the shipping and navigation much more risky. Any efforts to continue to adequately survey the Arctic, that's absolutely indispensable for safe shipping. And the third, which we covered quite a bit in the previous discussions, is port infrastructure. You know, in an optimal situation and in an optimal world, we'd have deep water ports throughout each community. But as we know, there is quite a bit of restrictions and obstacles ahead of us to achieve that. But on the shorter term, there's some basic things that can be done to improve overall operations. First is beach landing areas in the communities. They need to be adequately prepared, stable grounds, remove of debris, have a safe maneuvering area, especially for the handling equipment, not be congested with other community activities regarding either be fishing or just the activities of daily ongoing aspects of daily life. Breakwater walls can be constructed also close to the beach landing areas, especially if they're susceptible to high winds or waves. Improvements to the staging areas where the cargo is temporarily stored, that has to be looked into. Not every community is the area where we discharge the cargo sufficiently sized. So again, compacted ground, safe working perimeter, and it's just a sufficient size. These are relatively basic aspects, but they're not necessarily up to par everywhere. And another element to keep in mind is once the cargo is discharged on the beach, how do we make sure that we efficiently transport it and safely within the community? And that's not to be neglected in the reflections. So as a summary, as we recap, we anticipate that the marine shipping activities in the Arctic will continue to increase. That's driven by resupply traffic, resource-based traffic, and transit traffic. So it's very critical for us, all stakeholders involved, to ensure that the marine transportation infrastructure developments are constructed and are done in a coordinated manner to ensure the safety of the mariners, the communities, and the environment. Thank you.